PFF just confirmed what nobody in the DMV had the guts to say out loud, and Adam Peters already knew because while you're sitting here watching this, the Washington Commanders general manager just pulled a chess move that most of the league hasn't even finished processing yet. Stephon Diggs, 32 years old, 85 receptions, 1,013 yards, and 82.6 PFF receiving grade playing for the Patriots, the team with the least offensive talent in the entire league in 2025. And Pro Football Focus just named Washington as the ideal destination for him, not as a possibility, as the destination. And in a minute, I'm going to break down exactly why signing him might be the biggest mistake this team makes before the opening whistle even sounds. Because the numbers on the field don't tell the whole story. But that's not the only thing happening in Ashburn right now, because while the Diggs debate keeps burning, there's a player already in that building, one that PFF just put on their 2026 all-breakout team, and most fans in the DMV are still sleeping on him in a way that's going to hit different come October. Trey Amos is about to go off, and the exact reason it happens this year ties directly to a name Peters quietly brought in this offseason. That name is Chig Okonkwo. 3 years, $27 million, and Bleacher Report is already calling it one of the best signings of the entire offseason. Nobody in the DMV is talking about this move enough. Nobody. And once I break down exactly what Okonkwo gives Jaden Daniels that Zach Ertz never could, you're going to understand why Peters is building something the rest of the NFC never saw coming. Raise hail. Let's get into it. Okay, let's be real with each other. One of the biggest weaknesses on the Washington Commanders heading into the 2026 season is the wide receiver room around Jaden Daniels. Terry McLaurin is still the king. Luke McCaffrey has his role. Antonio Williams came in the third round of the draft, but none of those names are keeping a defensive coordinator up at night, right? Now imagine adding Stephon Diggs to that room. Pro Football Focus just named Washington as the ideal landing spot for Diggs. And before you say PFF always exaggerates, hear me out because the numbers do the talking. In 2025, Diggs played for the Patriots. The Patriots, bro, that team had absolutely nothing around him offensively, and he still finished 10th among all receivers in PFF receiving grade with an 82.6, 2.08 yards per route run, and only a 2.9% drop rate, just 2 drops all season, 85 receptions, 1,013 yards, and he led New England all the way to a Super Bowl appearance. That same team, and how old is Diggs? 32 years old, 32, and he's still producing like a number one receiver in any offensive system. Now think about this from Jaden Daniels' perspective. JD9 needs a receiver who can play both inside and outside, someone who understands timing, who can create separation on short and intermediate routes, and who takes heat off McLaurin. Diggs is exactly that player. His inside-outside skill set is precisely what new offensive coordinator David Blau needs to keep the Commanders unpredictable. And here's the detail that makes this even more interesting. Diggs is from Maryland. He played college ball at the University of Maryland. He's been linked to Washington multiple times in recent weeks. This is not a rumor pulled out of thin air. There's real substance here, but, and here's the complicated part, Diggs carries serious off-field baggage. In the last 5 years, he's had 2 separate legal incidents, one with a former girlfriend that's still active in civil court, another involving his former private chef where he was found not guilty. That doesn't just disappear because he plays well on Sunday. The Commanders are going to have to make a tough call. Are they willing to bring in a veteran with that kind of off-field history, but who's still one of the most consistent receivers in the league when he's on the field? Because look, I could be wrong, but if there's a team that needs that kind of guaranteed production in the receiver room right now, it's Washington. Terry McLaurin and Luke McCaffrey combined for under 500 snaps in 2025. That's not enough. The room needs more, and Diggs on the football field is exactly that answer. I say the conversation is worth having, not the max contract, not the crazy deal, but a reasonable veteran offer that brings him back to the DMV where he was born, where he grew up, where he wants to be. If they sign him, fam, drop your take in the comments right now because this one is going to generate some real debate. And speaking of the Commanders' secondary, because the connection is natural, let's talk about someone who's already in the building that a lot of fans are still sleeping on. Trey Amos, cornerback, pick 61 in the 2025 draft, 6'1", 195 pounds, 4.43 40 time, and Pro Football Focus just put him on their all-breakout team for the 2026 season. The report says his rookie season ended early with a fractured fibula in Week 10 against the Lions. His overall PFF grade was 55.8, which sounds average until you start looking at the details. In 5 of his 10 games, Amos posted a coverage grade of 68.5 or higher. His lockdown rate was 51.43%, which ranked 26th among all cornerbacks in the league. And he broke up 17.6% of passes thrown his way. That's not an average cornerback. That's a cornerback learning at his own pace under difficult conditions. And now comes year 2. With new defensive coordinator Durante Jones, who specializes specifically in the secondary. That's a direct boost for Amos. You have to remember, this man played for 3 different universities in 5 seasons. Louisiana, Alabama, Ole Miss. At Ole Miss, he was an all-SEC selection with 50 tackles, 13 pass deflections, 4 tackles for loss, and 3 interceptions. The guy who can do that in the SEC has the fundamentals to compete in the NFL. And listen, when Bleacher Report calls him one of the best values of the 2025 draft, that's not something they say about just any second-round pick. That's something they say about someone projecting as a long-term starter. With Durante Jones building the secondary, with Amik Robertson already signed, with Sainra still on the other side, Amos has every piece of the ecosystem he needs to explode in 2026. And if he does, y'all don't understand. We might be looking at one of the best young secondaries in the entire NFC. Watch that name, year 2, ready to break out. And since we're talking about moves that fly under the radar, there's one signing this offseason that most fans aren't discussing enough. And that's fine, because while everybody's looking the other way, Adam Peters just made one of the smartest moves of the entire offseason. Chig Okonkwo, tight end, 3 years, $27 million. $7 million signing bonus, $16.7 million guaranteed. Alex K of Bleacher Report says this could end up being one of the best signings of the offseason when everything is said and done. And here's why that matters. Okonkwo is 26 years old. He's in the prime of his career. He's a move tight end who can line up anywhere in the formation, motion pre-snap, create confusion for defenses. And when he has the ball in his hands, he generates yards after the catch in a way that Zach Ertz simply cannot do at this stage of his career. And that's the important part. Ertz was productive for Jaden Daniels. He was reliable. He was that safety valve in the short and intermediate areas and in the red zone. But Ertz is not going to drag 3 defenders with him after the catch. Okonkwo can do exactly that. For David Blau, as the new offensive coordinator, having Okonkwo is like having an extra tactical piece on the chessboard. You can motion him, you can hide him, you can create trips formations with him and McLaurin on the field at the same time. That's a real headache for any defensive coordinator going up against Washington. Peters wanted a younger, more athletic, harder to predict roster. Okonkwo is exactly that. Quiet breakout candidate for 2026. Mark it down. And real quick on Trevon Diggs, not Stephon, the other one. NFL trade rumors put Washington as one of the best landing spots for the former Cowboys cornerback who passed through Green Bay in 2025 without finding his best form. He had 11 interceptions back in 2021, back-to-back Pro Bowls, but the injuries hit him hard, and nobody knows for certain what's left in the tank. At the veteran minimum, though, with his familiarity with Dan Quinn from their days in Dallas, and given how thin the depth is behind Amos, Sainra, Still Robertson, and Witherspoon, keep it a buck. It's a low-risk conversation worth having, not a starter. It's May 16th, 2026, and the Commanders are building something real in Ashburn. Stephon Diggs available with Washington as the ideal landing spot. Trey Amos ready to explode in year 2. Chig Okonkwo as the quiet steal of the offseason, and Trevon Diggs as a possible low-cost insurance policy for a secondary that could use the depth. This doesn't feel like the same team from 2 years ago. This feels different. This feels like an organization that knows exactly where it's going. If you want to keep following every Commander's move in real time, drop that like right now. Subscribe if you're new around here. And tell me in the comments, do you sign Stephon Diggs despite the off-field baggage, or do you let him walk? That answer is easy for me, but I want to know what you think. Raise hail. See you in the next one.